A mechanic fixed a blind girl's car for free. He didn't know someone was watching from the shadows. That silent moment decided his future. The morning air inside the garage was thick with oil and rust. Tools hung crooked on the walls, their handles worn smooth by years of use. The concrete floor was stained dark from decades of leaking engines. This was the kind of place where people came not by choice, but by necessity. The mechanic wiped his hands on a rag that had long forgotten its original color. He had learned to read people the way he read engines, by what they didn't say. When the old sedan pulled up that morning, he noticed the hesitation before the door opened. A man stepped out first, his shirt clean but faded, his shoes resolving into careful steps. Then he opened the back door. A young girl emerged, maybe 10 years old, holding a white cane with both hands. Her movements were slow but certain. She turned her face toward the sound of her father's voice, and he gently guided her forward. The mechanic watched them approach. He didn't stare. He had seen struggle before, in all its quiet forms. The father explained the problem. The car had been making a strange noise for days. It wouldn't start this morning. His voice was steady, but there was something underneath it, something heavy. The mechanic nodded and got to work. He opened the hood, checked the engine, ran his hands along the wiring. The girl stood near the car, her cane resting against her leg. She didn't fidget. She just listened. Her father stood beside her, one hand resting lightly on her shoulder. The mechanic could feel their waiting. It wasn't the impatient kind. It was the kind that came from knowing there was no other option. After 20 minutes, he found the issue. A failing starter motor, worn-out battery cables, and a fuel line that had seen better days. He could fix it, but it wouldn't be cheap. He told the father what needed to be done. The man nodded slowly, his jaw tight. "How much?" he asked. The mechanic gave him the number. There was a pause. The father looked down at his daughter, then back at the mechanic. "I can't pay all of that right now," he said quietly. "I can give you half today. The rest I'll need a few weeks." His voice didn't break, it didn't beg, it just stated the truth. The mechanic looked at him, then at the girl. She was still facing forward, her head slightly tilted as if she could sense the weight of the conversation. He turned back to the engine and said nothing for a moment. Then he spoke. "What does she need the car for?" The father hesitated. "Therapy once a week and her special school. Without the car, she misses both." The mechanic nodded slowly. He wiped his hands again and looked at the father. "Then she shouldn't miss therapy." The father blinked. "What?" The mechanic closed the hood. "I'll fix it, no charge." The words hung in the air like something fragile. The father opened his mouth, then closed it. His eyes reddened, but he didn't let the tears fall. "I don't know what to say." The mechanic shook his head. "You don't have to say anything." But the girl did. She stepped forward, her cane tapping lightly on the concrete. She stopped a few feet from the mechanic, her face turned toward his voice. "Thank you," she said. Her voice was calm, clear, and older than her years. "This car isn't just for driving, it's how I get better, it's how I keep going." The mechanic felt something tighten in his chest. He crouched down so he was closer to her level. "You keep going, then," he said quietly. She smiled. It was small, but it was real. What none of them knew was that someone else had been there the entire time. A man stood near the far wall, half hidden by shadows and old equipment. He wore plain clothes, a cap pulled low, hands in his pockets. He hadn't said a word. He hadn't moved. He had simply watched. His eyes had followed every gesture, every pause, every unspoken moment. When the mechanic refused payment, the man's expression didn't change, but his breathing slowed. When the girl thanked the mechanic, the man's hand tightened inside his pocket. He stayed until the car was fixed. He stayed until the father and daughter drove away. Then he left without a word. 3 weeks later, the mechanic arrived at his garage to find something strange. The front door had been replaced. The lock was new. Inside, the lights were brighter. The old fluorescent bulbs had been swapped out for clean, even lighting. His tool set, rusted and incomplete for years, had been fully restocked. On his desk was an envelope. Inside was a bank statement. His outstanding loan had been paid in full. There was no letter, no explanation. Just a single line written on a slip of paper. For those who see what matters. The mechanic sat down slowly. He read the line again. Then he folded the paper and put it in his pocket. He didn't know who had done this, but somewhere deep inside he understood. Kindness had been seen, and silence had answered it. The man who had stood in the shadows that day was not a stranger. He was the girl's father, her real father. Not the one who had brought her to the garage, but the one who had given her up years ago when his life had been consumed by wealth and ambition. He had lost his family in the pursuit of success. His ex-wife had taken their daughter and disappeared into a simpler life, raising her alone. When he learned his daughter had gone blind due to a condition he could have treated but had been too absent to notice, the guilt had eaten him alive. He had tracked them down not to interfere but to understand, to see how they lived, to witness the kindness or cruelty the world would show them. That morning at the garage, he had been testing something, not the mechanic but himself. Could he stand by and watch his daughter struggle? Could he resist the urge to fix everything with money? He had stayed silent. And in that silence, he had seen something he had forgotten existed. Generosity without expectation. Respect without recognition. He didn't reveal himself. He didn't reclaim his role as father. That right had been lost long ago. But he could do one thing. He could make sure that the man who had chosen kindness would never have to choose between survival and decency again. The mechanic never knew the full story. He didn't need to. He had done what felt right, and life had quietly shifted in his favor. The girl continued her therapy. Her father, the one who raised her, continued to work hard, unaware of the invisible hand that had lifted a burden he didn't even know had been removed. And somewhere in the city, a man in an expensive suit sat in his office and looked at a photograph of a little girl holding a white cane. He didn't cry. He didn't call. He just sat there, remembering the sound of her voice saying thank you to a stranger. And for the first time in years, he felt something close to peace. Kindness doesn't always announce itself. Sometimes it happens in the space between words. Sometimes it's witnessed by those who have no right to judge it, but every reason to respect it. And sometimes the greatest power is knowing when to stay silent and let goodness speak for itself.